Hey Erica, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you going?
I'm good. So I guess a lot of people think, why is it so hard to find, say, evidence of life on Mars? Surely you just put a life detector there and that will tell you whether it's there or not. But it's much more complicated than that, right?
Yeah, it is. I guess it's difficult to design like one machine that's a catch-all life detector, because life is so complex and multifaceted, and there are many challenges with studying something from so far away, from, creating mini versions of the large-scale machines we use here on Earth that are light enough to be able to transport, to another planet. Even to just making sure our signal is authentic and reliable, repeatable, not contamination we've carried from Earth. Yeah, and so like scientists have been working for decades now to try and detect life elsewhere, particularly on Mars. And with each mission, the methods for detecting life get refined. And so I guess, if we use Mars as an example, we've narrowed the scope quite a lot now. So I guess the life detection is kind of centered around looking for signs of past or ancient life on Mars, as opposed to current life. And I guess there's kind of like two reasons for this. Firstly, we're not looking for current life, mainly due to planetary protection rules. We don't want to contaminate Mars with Earth life, and we don't want to bring any Mars life back home to Earth. So,
That's
because of
good.
that, yeah, we're kind of restricted to, at this point, searching for past or fossilized life. And I guess the other main reason is we know that Mars billions of years ago was like the early Earth, and in that it had liquid water and habitable environments. So it's thought that given the early Earth was inhabited by microbes, and early Mars may have been inhabited by microscopic life too. So anyway, that's what's driving the current rover missions on Mars, and what our life detection instruments are being used for there.
Is there an issue though that you use the expression, I think, life as we don't know it. Might it be the case that like we know what life is like on Earth, but if life has emerged on another planet completely independently, are we going to even be able to detect it? I mean, will we know what to look for?
That is a very good point. And I guess the whole basis for my research. So I guess winding back a little bit to start with, currently the search for life elsewhere in the universe is informed by what we know about life here on Earth. So the current model is to find a habitable environment with liquid water, a source of energy, and so forth, and then to look for evidence of the life forms that inhabit that environment on Earth. But I mean, this is a great model, but yeah, there is a problem, as you mentioned. Is based on a sample size of one. We only have one example of life, and that's life as it is on Earth. So if life elsewhere is different to Earth life, how would we be able to detect it? How would we even recognize it as life? Yeah, so this I guess underpins my research and that of the team that I'm a part of, called the Laboratory for Agnostic Biosignatures. And we're investigating signs of life through an agnostic lens. And I guess what that means, in other words, is we're exploring signs of life that might be considered universal to all life, regardless of its origins. And I mean, there are challenges to this. Obviously, it's difficult to know, or to try and think about what you don't know. How do we step back far enough to be able to look for strange or alien life when we're so biased by Earth life? But that's what the team's working towards.
And can you give us sort of a little clue as to some of the things you're investigating? I mean, how do you even begin coming up with that kind of, I mean, in my mind, it's kind of, I mean, it's not a physical instrument, but you're like trying to come up with a universal life detector idea, right? That I think they've got on Star Trek, right? But anyway, that we haven't got one in the real world yet. Could you just give us a clue how you would go about doing that?
Yeah, so I guess to start with some kind of examples. So I guess the team is split across multiple areas, but for instance, current, or looking at it from current life, and also looking at it from the angle of extinct life. So I guess an example of a universal indicator of life, if you're looking at from the current life perspective, might be structures that store and transport information like DNA and RNA does for life here on Earth, or even like compartments that show evidence of growth and reproduction like a cell. But when you're talking about looking for signs of past life, things get a little bit trickier, as when life gets fossilized, a lot of that biological information is lost in the process. So we really don't have a good understanding yet of what actually might constitute a universal sign of past life. And that's where my research comes in. Having said this, I can give you a little bit of an example, or like to try and step you through it a bit. We know that all life, regardless of its origin, needs to transfer energy in some way, just in order to be able to grow and reproduce and be considered life. So on Earth, life does this in two main ways: photosynthesis, getting energy from light, like a plant does, and chemosynthesis, getting the energy from chemicals. So if we kind of switch now to thinking about this from a universal perspective, and keeping in mind I'm focusing on signs of life preserved in rocks, if there was a structure in a rock that exhibited a preferred growth orientation compared to the surrounding sediment, this could be a candidate universal sign of past life, as it could be related to growth towards an energy source. It doesn't have to be towards light. It could be towards chemical gradients, or in response to other environmental factors like radiation or pressure or gravity, or who knows, a number of other features, depending on the characteristics of the environment, on the planetary body that's being studied. So yeah, I guess stay tuned, and I hope to have more answers on this soon.
That's fascinating. So yeah, you're going very general there and just saying that life may be sort of tending towards an energy source or moving away from an environmental pressure or something. So there'll be some directionality that you wouldn't normally see.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just one, example to try and kind of tease out more specifics. But yeah, it's a good starting point.
And so I guess, NASA and, the easiest place to look for life elsewhere is Mars, I guess. And your work would be pretty directly applicable there, right?
Yeah, it is, or it is and will be. Hopefully, I'm going to find a lot more. I'm just at the start of my project. I'm about 6 months in, but yeah, it's definitely something that I'm using the early record on Earth. I guess something we haven't kind of gotten into, I guess the next level of detail to help answer this question a bit is life on Earth is everywhere. So it's really hard to find a place or an example to study where, the thing you're looking at is not affected by life. So an abiotic or a non-biological process. So I study rocks from the ancient Earth from billions of years ago to, I guess, look at environments where life wasn't kind of super saturating every aspect of the environment. So we can kind of get an idea of this like abiotic baseline, and what things look like in the absence of life, so that once we have a better understanding of that, we can then add in life and then go, okay, what is unusual, what does it look like if we add this other thing? And I guess that's how it will eventually be applied to Mars and hopefully other places in the universe.
Oh, fascinating. And is that work you do up in the Pilbara in Australia?
Yeah, exactly. My main research or field site is in the Pilbara in Western Australia, in 2.4 billion year old rocks. So it's an amazing site out there.
Very cool, and look, very cool research and important research too, as we try to find life elsewhere in the universe. So great talking to you, and good luck with it.
Thanks very much. Thanks.